Hello everyone, I'm Miss Geer and I'm coming to you from my home office / workout room. Okay, I'm going to read to you a book called Martin Luther King Jr. Civil Rights Leader. It is the holiday on Monday, so I thought it was appropriate to read a biography about his life and all the things that he did for the civil rights movement. Okay, let's begin. Martin Luther King Jr., Civil Rights Leader. Chapter 1, Because You Are Colored. Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1929. He grew up in a big house on Auburn Avenue in Atlanta, Georgia. Martin Luther King Sr. was a Baptist preacher. Everybody called him Daddy King. He was a strong, proud man who taught his children to be proud also. Alberta King was mother dear to her 3 children. Young Martin's family called him ML, but his friends called him Tweed because he wore tweed suits. He also called him Will Shoot because whenever the basketball was passed to him, he would shoot it. There was also a serious side to Martin. He questioned segregation. Segregation meant that Black people were treated differently from other people. Why do they have to ride in the back of the buses, use separate public bathrooms, and drink from different water fountains? Martin was told, because you are colored. That's the way things were in the South when Martin was growing up. Once Martin made a speech and won first place. He and his teachers rode the bus home. The bus filled up. So the driver told all the Black riders that they had to give their seats up to white passengers. When Martin asked why, he was told, because you are colored. Even though Martin Luther King Jr. was young, he felt segregation was not a good way for Americans to live. Black and white people should have the same rights. Chapter 2, Morehouse and More. Martin still had fun growing up. He loved the good soul food meals prepared by his grandmother. He did so well in school that he graduated from high school when he was only 15. In the fall of 1944, he entered Morehouse College in Atlanta. What was Martin going to be? Daddy King said he should be a preacher. Martin wasn't so sure about that. He was still very young. He had a lot of questions about people, God, and what he would do in life. A very important person in his life during that time was Dr. Benjamin Mays, the president of Morehouse. Dr. Mays was a very good friend and helped Martin look for his own answers. By the time he finished Morehouse in the class of 1948, Martin knew he wanted to be a preacher. So he went to Crozer Theological Seminary in Chester, Pennsylvania. At Crozer, Martin read about Mohandas Gandhi, who helped India gain freedom from England, peacefully. Martin also read the writings of Henry David Thoreau, who said unfair laws should not be obeyed. Martin studied the words of Jesus and other holy leaders. His studies helped him find ways to fight prejudice peacefully. There was racial prejudice in the North as well in the South, but whenever it came up, Martin handled it peacefully. His classmates looked up to him and even his enemies because they were friends. Love and peace were becoming very important words in Martin Luther King Jr.'s life. Peaceful protest. After finishing Crozer Seminary in 1951, Martin went to Boston University. While living in Boston, Martin met Coretta Scott from Alabama. She was studying music at a school in Boston. After their first date, Martin called Coretta to marry him. She thought he was joking, but he wasn't. She was everything I wanted in a wife, he told his best friend. On June 18, 1953, Martin and Coretta were married. Martin got his advanced degree in theology, and Coretta finished her studies too. Then the Kings had to decide where they would live. A church in the South had asked Dr. King to come there. Mrs. King wanted to stay in the North at first. The South was still very segregated, but at last they decided to go back down home. So there's Mr. King and Miss Coretta Scott King, and it looks like they were just married there. In December 1954, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. preached his first sermon at the pastor of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. A year passed. It was December 1st, 1955, an African-American woman named Rosa Parks got off from work and boarded a public bus. The bus filled, so she was asked to give her seat up to a white passenger. Miss Parks refused. At that time, it was against the law for Miss Parks to refuse to give up her seat to a white person when the bus was crowded, so she was taken to the police station. Black leaders in the Montgomery area called a meeting that evening at Dr. King's church. It was decided that a bus strike might help to change the unfair laws. Dr. King was asked to be the leader. He said he would, but only if the people taking part in the bus strike were peaceful. For months and months, Black people of Montgomery didn't ride the public buses. 1 year later, the bus company agreed to let all people, Black and white, sit where they wanted. To the mountaintop. After the Montgomery bus strike, Dr. King started the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. He moved his family to Atlanta. Daddy King was very happy to have his son and family home again. The South was changing. Young people were helping it happen. Students at North Carolina A&T University held peaceful sit-ins at segregated lunch counters. Black and white students were working together to make America a better place. They formed a group under the SCLC known as the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or SNCC, pronounced SNCC. The group held sit-ins and peaceful protests all over the country. Americans were taking a stand against segregation, even if it meant they were beaten up or put in jail. Dr. King was jailed many times too, but he always said to be peaceful. In 1963, two well-known leaders, A. Philip Randolph and Bayard Rustin, planned the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Other Black leaders were asked to take part. On a hot August morning in 1963, more than 250,000 people came to Washington, D.C., to the largest demonstration for civil rights ever held in the country. People came from all over the world in airplanes, trains, buses, and cars. Some walked and some were carried. The large crowd was orderly and peaceful. They sang songs. A favorite was called "We Shall Overcome." Many people gave speeches that day. At the end of the long day, there was one more speaker, Martin Luther King, Jr. He talked about having a dream where Americans lived in peace and friendship. "Let freedom ring," he said, and one day he hoped all Americans might sing, "Free at last, free at last." We shall overcome. For his work, Dr. King was given the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. He was the second African American to win this honor. President John F. Kennedy had pushed for laws that would protect the rights of all races, but he had been killed on November 22, 1963. President Lyndon B. Johnson wanted to work for equal rights too. Dr. King was at the White House the day President Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act on August 6, 1965. Dr. King believed in peace. Some people did it. They beat his fellow followers. Churches were burned. Dogs and water hoses were turned on peaceful marches. People were put in jail. Some were even killed. Many times people said they wanted to kill Dr. King. There's a photo of Dr. Martin Luther King at one of his speeches. Workers in Memphis, Tennessee asked him to help them plan a peaceful march. Dr. King went to Memphis. The march ended in violence. This bothered Dr. King very much. He wanted to hold another march, so he returned to Memphis. He stayed at the Lorraine Motel. On April 4, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was killed by James Earl Ray. Ray served a life sentence in a Tennessee state prison. He died in 1998. Miss Coretta King began the Center for Nonviolent Social Change in Atlanta. People came from all over the world to study Dr. King's life, writings, and peaceful demonstrations. Today, the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is a holiday every year on the third Monday in January. We honor his work and his dream. If his dream is remembered, then one day we might live together in peace. So I hope you enjoyed that book. And as you can see, Dr. Martin Luther King was a very influential man, and we take this day, this holiday, to honor him. I will see you around the school. Bye.